morning and welcome to Carnation Crafts. It is lovely to have your company this morning. We've got a really special show with some really beautiful, gorgeous special vignettes, and they are a little bit different. Something's floating in front of me, Miss Taz. They're a little bit different and they kind of bring new life, right, to the collections that we've got already. So you'll recognise some of these from Fine Splendour, from Lots of Love, from Wild Garden and from New Light as well. So there's certain aspects going through. I will go through the dies with you first so you know which ones they come through. It's not the dies particularly that are on sale, it is the vignettes for them. So you may already have these in your collection and it's going to just breathe brand new life into them. And it's almost like getting a brand new collection again because we can craft with them so differently. So beautiful to have. Hey Pamela Linton, how you doing, lovely lady? Hey Suzanne Page, hey Karen Vincent, lovely to have you all here. So what I'm going to do predominantly is go through some finished samples with you so you can see them, and then we'll go into demo for them as well. But in order for you to be able to access them, you need to go to the Carnation Crafts website, which is www.carnationcrafts.co.uk. And I believe you will find them on the deal of the day today. And they are only available at this insane price of $4.99 until midnight tonight, at which point they will absolutely go back up to £15. So now is the time to get them. They're doing them obviously on a special for the deal of the day. It's 67% off, which is a whacking great big amount. And to be honest, to refresh your collections for a £5, it's worth it, right? Hey Karen Vincent, hey Karen Carson, lots of Karens. Hello Fiona, are you all okay? Lots of people saying hello to you as well, Miss Tiz Taz.
Do you know what? Everywhere I go now, because obviously I spend so much time here, you call me it and then all these lovely ladies call me it. When people don't call me Miss Taz now, I get offended.
Do you feel offended when nobody calls you Miss Taz?
Title?
Where's my full title of Miss Tiz Taz? Good morning, Tricia. How you doing? Everybody having a nice morning this morning? I've had a lovely morning this morning with Miss Taz and also obviously with my children. Right, let's have a look at the different dies first. And so these are the dies that the vignettes fit in. Good morning, Pam Simpson. How you doing, lovely? So you'll see which dies they are, and then we'll go forward from there and we'll have a look then at the finished sample so you can see how they come to life. Tiny Flutter. Now where you're seeing the dies here and you're seeing the colourway that's on it, that's the original colourway. We're going to bring you a brand new colourway. That's what I'll show you in the finished samples. Linda Poland says, good morning, bought mine this morning, haven't got all the dies yet, but I'm still working through the collections, might have to leave early, looking after my grandson Ben today. Well, huge hugs to Ben. I hope you have a wonderful time with him, Linda. No time better spent than with the babies. So Tiny Flutter, which I love so much. Wait till you see the new vignette for that. In fact, I will show you a quick sample of that. Look how stunning that is. And Janine's done that with the chawl. So you can see how it comes together with those three backgrounds. Just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So that's Tiny Flutter. Then we have Lace and Rattan, and this comes from the New Light collection. Love this. This is a really important die. Regardless of which vignettes you're using for it, it's a really important die because these shapes give you the perfect corner pieces. They give you beautiful backgrounds. Really, it's just a stunning set, Lace and Rattan. So we've got new colorways for these. You remember Bird Bath back in the day. So you can see it's got that beautiful sort of copper tone on the original. The new one is more of a silver tone. So you'll see it as it comes through here. Can you see the difference there? So we're getting brand new colours with these. So it changes how we work. Shamila says, hello from Holland. I just love the Floral Heights collection. So for me, this is great. Thank you. It's lovely to see you, Shamila. Then we've got Garden Chatter, one of my all-time favourites. Absolutely stunning. I always love this. There's something about it. It's so pretty and delicate. It just is gorgeous. So that's Garden Chatter. The half bow, super useful, the half bow. It will create half a bow to come off the side of a card, or obviously you put two together to create a full bow. I will show you how to make that as we go through demos. Good morning, Janine, you wonderful human. Then we're going to go through the best of the bunch here as well. He's so sweet. Little gardeners. So if you've got a gardener in your life, this is just perfect. Really pretty. He's my favourite of all time. Look, he's so handsome. So you've got the hedgehog, you've got the rabbit, and you've got the squirrel. Really lovely. I love him so much. And you'll see these as they all come to life. Cozy Cottage. Really important piece again. Think of things like Ponderance Place, Pure Enchantment, all of those ones that have come out recently where this will fit in with those as well. So start to think how we can play, how we can change things around. Good morning, Pauline E. Good morning, Mags. So we can get to play, we can change these around, and all of these have now got a brand new vignette on them as well, which you can get on the Carnation website for $4.99 under the code 231890, or by just hitting the deal of the day button if you're buying it this morning, because that will be at $4.99, but by midnight tonight that's going to go back up to £15. So if you're watching this on repeat, you'll need the number 231890. Then we've got Je ne sais quoi, which is all your ladybirds, it's your little buzzy wees, your fuzzy wombles, and then all your beautiful flourishes and your foliage as well. So start thinking about your tuck-ins, how we're going to build those scenes on the corner edges of cards, and how you're going to pull it all together with your extras as well. Really gorgeous set of dies there. And it makes it easier because it's all in, you know, you don't have to cut each one individually, which would be frustrating. And then from that, we've got Vintage Blooms. These are stunners. Got to tell you, I love these just as cards on their own. Something like this, where you can make, you know, you can put a stamp on it and you can use it as a central point or just use it as a card. It's so pretty. These are so important. Corners, always important. The smaller ones, if you want to bring that down, that sort of drama down, rather than having the big one, up to you how you play with it. And the new vignettes for it are stunning. And then you've got these as well. So you've got the elongated panel, and then you've got the smaller tags here. So you've got the square, the rectangle. Really beautiful. Really, really gorgeous. Susan Green says, absolutely stunning, Carla. Margaret said, already ordered. Yeah, I mean, now's the time to do it, isn't it? Because £10 more tomorrow, so it makes sense to do it today. Pauline E says, our Hector Hedgehog went to the rescue today as he's got a poorly foot. Oh, I love hedgehogs. They're just so, they're so lovely, aren't they? Right, let's put these over there. I'm going to show you a couple of finished samples. These are all made by Janine, who is the head DT and is probably the best card maker in the industry as far as I am aware. She's done such an amazing job. But these are now how those vignettes are coming through on the special vignettes that you can get today. So completely new colorways. Look at his little face. See how they can hold. I love the fact that they can hold stuff in their little paws, like little paws here. They've all got little cut lines in them, so you can poke things through and they can hold them, and it might be the cutest thing ever. Beautiful use here of your nested dies, also gorgeous use of your backing papers. Now, for the sake of being completely transparent, the demos that I've done today are predominantly on white, and I've done that so you can see the colour tones coming through of the special vignettes, just so you can see the vibrancy of them. Obviously, they work with backing papers that you've got already, but when you download the special vignettes, I'm pretty certain, excuse me, that you also get some backing papers on those vignettes as well that are digital ones. You can print them out. This... Look at that for beautiful. Isn't that stunning? Decoupage. We're going to look at that as we start going through the demos. We're going to look at decoupaging up these roses to make them more sort of full and bloomed. But Janine is the queen of decoupage. There's nobody that does it quite in the same way that she does. Using your love hearts. I do apologise about my voice. Hold on. Janine's saying, all the DT made samples for this one, sweetie. Am I just not reading about Pam Simpson's? Thank you, Janine. Sorry, my voice is still struggling from COVID. You're just going to have to bear with me. I apologise. So again, we're going to look at these decoupage elements. Thank you, Pam. So we can start to build and we can start to bring in kind of different ways of playing. We can keep cards very, very simple, but by decoupaging up, and especially when we start to use things like pin flare and we can sculpt, you get these amazing results very, very easily. Hey Karen, Carol Hart. Hey Karen, Linda Price. So yeah, we're going to look at building scope on those. Now, one of these that I really want to show you because I think it's just a stroke of genius is this from Janine. It's been used in such a clever way. What Janine's done is used quilling strips. As such, she's quilled coil to separate those two pieces and create that distance. So by using filigree, we still get to use it without putting a solid colour on the back. And I think that is just wonderful. There's something really bright, really just gorgeous. And they say no backing, just coloured card to match. That's entirely what I meant. The perfect papers come with it. That's what I was meaning in my head. So things like this, where you've got your coloured backing, that will be in the papers. I'm specifically doing white on white so you can see the colour tones coming through. Let's have a look. Angela says, good morning, ladies. Can I please ask where do you get the little dewdrops on the cards? I think you can buy them from a multitude of places. It depends what you put in, but you can put in literal water drop beads in places like the Zon, and they will come up and show you. So all your decoupage elements, work with your layers and bring those forward. And then something like this, which I love. I've fallen completely in love with this card. How stunning is that? Really, really beautiful, isn't it? The gorgeous colours, the use of the filigree from the lace and rattan, just bringing it all together, and then that gorgeous half bow that's been obviously made into your complete. Isn't it so pretty? Really gorgeous. There is also the teacup in these vignettes as well, so that's another one as well. So you've got all of these that are there. It just breathes new life into collections that we already have, and it's one of those, the thing that I love about doing the special vignettes, and they, you know, every now and again they'll bring us these, is that it refreshes our memories as to what we previously have bought so that we can get them back out and play with them again. The thing with Carnation is they bring out so many beautiful things, and we move on to the next one, then we move on to the next one, just because they're so pretty, aren't they? But then we go, oh my, I remember how much I loved that one. And that's why these special vignettes are so important. Right, I'm going to have a look, first of all, at something that is relatively simple, just to sort of bring in the idea of decoupage. So, hold on, let me get all my bits and bats out, Miss Taz. You're doing a wonderful job of covering for me. Right, so all I've done here is just cut out some basic cardstocks. Absolutely get your nested dies out, play with all your, you know, your different card shapes that you've got from Carnation as well. I'm trying to go plain so you can see what you got above it, if you like. Now, for those of you brand new to card making, score line at 1/2 inch, put a bit of red liner tape on it. That's going to give you a really good, strong base. Hey, Sharon Curtis, how you doing, loveliness? Now, once you've done that, it's always easier if you just fold that score line first. It just makes it easier for you to shuffle the two together, then take your red liner off it. Just by grabbing, keep that away and put it towards your body so you can shuffle the two together without getting into a pickle. Once you've got that done, you can lay that down and push it, and that's going to give you a card base that's fully centered. And then we can start working on layers. Now, although I said that I was going to work white on white, what I did want to do is just look at the blush papers that Carnation do. Now, they do 3 of these. There's a rose blush, there's a blue blush, and there is a natural blush. For this, I've chosen to use the rose blush. And it's because the rose blush has got a really warm tone to it. It's still white cardstock essentially, but it's kind of with a hint of a tint. And it's got this really warm feel to it, and that's what it gives us. So when you see the 3 comparatively, it almost gives it a cream tone to it, and it just lifts the different colours in the vignettes that we're going to use. So if I look at that as, you know, pure white and then that softer tone, although they're both white, that's soft. If I am then to put in, for instance, let me find something that's got a pinker tone to it. If I put in, for instance, this, you can see how that becomes, it's quite cold, it's a cold tone. We've got cool tones within the purples, and the white is bringing out those cold tones, and it's stunning. And if I was doing cards for winter, that's absolutely what I would do, because I want those colder tones. However, if I transfer that over and I put it onto those warmer tones, what happens is the pink that's around the edges starts to really pop, because I'm warming the tones through it. And it's just colour theory. It's about how we use colour theory to trick the eye. So although nothing changed, I've still now got a warmer tone to it, and it's just transferring it from the very cold to the warmer tones. So it's just one of those interesting points. If you start to use, say, the blue blush paper, that will give you a completely different tone. And if you use the natural, again, so play with your blush papers, work out which colour tones you're using. If you really want to cool your tones, use your blush blue. If you want something that neutralizes your tones, then go for your natural. And if you want to warm your tones, go for your rose. That's my advice. So then I'm going to take my little panels here. I'm using a larger sort of 3mm base on this, just so I can raise and create shadow. I'm playing white on white Remember, if you're using white on white, it's really important to create a height between your layers. Otherwise, the white will eat itself and it sort of becomes pointless having it. Whereas if you can create a height between it, it'll give you the shadow play. It will allow you to have dimension and it'll make more sense. So if I place this, it might be a bit on the wonk, guys, because I can't lean over, but I'll get it as near as I can. So if I place that onto there, okay, push, pull. Eileen says, what is the code for the die collection for these vignettes? I'm struggling to find it. It depends which vignettes, actually, Eileen, because there are different dies. It's not specifically a collection. There's some from Fine Splendor. There are some from Wild Garden, there are some from New Light, and there are some from Lots of Love. So it depends which one you want, but if you go onto the deal of the day, it should explain all of that for you and let you know. But they are the collections that these are coming from. Miss Tiz Taz is going to try and get that for you in the background there. Kate said, thank you for that. It's really interesting. I find colour theory really interesting because it's something that once you start learning about it, it really makes sense, and I find it like a really nice way of playing. So I'm going to use this larger panel. Now, if I put that there, I just want to show you it again in the difference. That to me is so crisp and so beautiful. It's really gorgeous. Whereas if I can place it, do you see how I pull out the tones now? So what I'm doing is pulling out the tone of the purple to create a pink, and I'm pulling out the tones of the sort of peachy yellow colours and the insides of those daisies. It changes the way it's viewed. Cold, crisp. That would be very crisp, very clean. Warmed. It's just the difference in how we play. I hope that makes sense to everybody at home. I just wanted to kind of look at that, and I'm going to go through and look at that with the different demos so that you can see it in that way. And just place this on. Again, I'll try and not get this on the wonk. Just bear with. That should be about right. Push, pull. And that gets it where I want it to be. So now you see how we create this really lovely warm platform that sits on top. We're creating that theatre stage that allows it to just have that little change, that just a little something. So although it's still white cardstock, we're not moving away from white. I'm still working white on white, but I'm giving myself a point of distance. Right, now, because I'm not going to be doing huge amounts with this card, I'm not making it busy, I'm not over pushing it. What I am going to do is use a ball tool, and I'm going to start sculpting it. Miss Tiz Taz, right, everybody at home, here we go. Fine Splendor is 210111. New Light is 220213. Lots of Love is 211000, and Wild Garden is 210929. All of the vignettes that we've got today will be on those numbers.
Guess what though?
What though?
They're all on a sale price. All the die collections.
All of them. All of them are on a sale price. We like them apples. Right, let's talk about sculpting and look at the difference, because when we start to decoupage, and the DT team have done a fabulous job at exemplifying this. When we start to decoupage something like this rose that's sitting there, and we've got that kind of depth, can you see that? You've got the depth there. When we start to sculpt those out, it makes it raise really high from the cardstock itself, but without it being on a protrusion. So you kind of mold it. Now, in order to get that molding, what we need to do is sculpt it. So the reason that we can do that with Carnation so well is that when the dies are designed, they have cut lines in them that separate out the pieces of cardstock. And what I mean by that is, where's my pokey? If I take this rose and I sort of look at the layers, if I'm canny with it, can you, hold on, if I do that in front of you, can you see how I can poke straight through with my pokey tool on one of those cut lines, okay? What that means is that piece of cardstock here, this little strip of rose, is separate to the rest of it. So in order for me to use my ball tool on it, which is like 101 of paper sculpting, if that was just one solid rose and I was to take my ball tool onto this piece, I'm going to crease it. Because I can take a smaller ball tool and I can work on each petal, I can really bring it to life. I can start to build, and that's why Carnation cards always look so incredible, because you have those cut lines in them. It's very specific and very detailed, and it's part of having the design team, the designs done and the artwork done in-house, and the fact that the dies are sort of sketched to become a die essentially. So I can just go round on each petal and I can start to build that height. I can start to really pull that in and go all the way through. Now I can do it again on the leaves, and I'm following Nick's shading lines here. So obviously where the vine, the spine of that leaf sits, I can work on either side of it to bring through that difference. Same again just down at the bottom. I'm not going to go through every leaf, but I am going to go through the flowers essentially. But we're starting to build dimension. That dimension, once we add decoupage to it, is going to create a completely different look. And that's why it's so incredible. Now, if you get out your original vignettes that go with these and you start working with the two of them together and create the same card twice with the original vignettes and with your special edition ones today, and look at the difference in the cards that you're making. It completely sort of changes what we're doing and how we visualize it at the end. And it's interesting to see it. Right, I'm just going to place these through a little bit more on those leaves and bring that forward. Smaller end for my buds because they're a smaller piece of card. Work with what you've got, don't work against it. So just pulling those through. You can get the ball tools on Carnation's website. You can get the foam mat. If you've got them at home, you know, and you're thinking, oh, I'll just use any foam mat, please do make sure you have one that's really dense like this in order to do this kind of work. Because if you don't, and you're using one that has a lot of give in it, what will happen is, as you press down on that foam mat, the paper will give. You have to have dense foam. I can't push that really. It's very, very dense. That's part of paper sculpting as well. You need dense foam. So I'm just going through and I'm playing with those aspects. Now, if I turn that round, you can start to see how they have raised up. If I was to put glue, let me just get rid of that little piece from there. If I was to use glue on the leaves and push, you'll see how my flowers raise. Even though the leaves are there, the flowers are still raised because we've sculpted it. So because we've sculpted it and we've raised it, it allows me to have dimension that I would not normally have. And that's important because otherwise you get a flat look on your cards. And sometimes a flat look will give you a flat base. So if we can start to raise from the beginning, what you get is dimension straight away, and it gives you a visual check when you're looking at the card. So it's a really lovely way to work. Now we've got decoupage elements as well. Oh, we did have, till I threw them on the floor. So now what I'm going to do is take the second part of that same thing. I can go in with my ball tool now and I can sculpt. I'm going to use a smaller size than that original one now because I'm working down in size. So I'll go here. I'm going to lace out every single petal. You don't need to spend a great deal of time on it. What I will say is, if I was to take, I'm going to ruin my own now. I'm going to do what I'm going to tell you not to do. I'm going to take the big ball tool, okay? And it makes a difference. You might not think so. It does. If I take this and I just, can you hear it cracking? It makes me feel very uncomfortable. If I do this, the paper's going to crack and it's going to bend, and you can hear it. I can't do it anymore because it's making me uncomfortable. Yes, I'll still get a dome, but I've ruined what I started with. I haven't ruined it completely, but I can see it because I'll start to get little white spots on the paper because I'm tearing it. I'm breaking the fibres too much. So you take it gently, go with a smaller ball tool, work on each individual petal, give yourself a fighting chance to just make it beautiful, finish it effectively, work with the layers that Nick and the team have given us so that you can create that gorgeous, gorgeous dimension that we want. And we're going to obviously place that one on top. Now, I'm not going to get too detailed with every single flower, and I won't be, just because you'll be here all day. If I was making this to give, 100% would. Part of the other decision that we make when we're doing this as an artist is how high do you want your pin flare, which sounds very dramatic, doesn't it? But it is true. If I choose to keep that lower, then my flower, my end product, will have less dimension. The higher I take my pin flare, the more dimension I'm going to get. However, if I take it too high and then I put the card on a side, I'm going to see the dried pin flare. Now that's why sculpting is so important. When you've got it in bowl shape like that, it's going to hide your pin flare, so I can take it higher because the edges are going to hide the pin flare. So it's another thing to sort of think about when you're building it and you're building your height, is just how much pin flare can I take, and do I need to bowl it out more on the edges by sculpting more on those edges. Now I can afford to go a little bit higher, and I want it to sit proud. So I'm just going to place it through. And I'm going to, can you see how that sits quite high? But because I've got the bowled out edges, I'm not seeing the pin flare inside it. Okay, and that's important. I want the height, I want the dimension, but I don't want the pin flare showing, because that's going to give the secret away. And as soon as you give the secret away, you lose the magic a little bit, right? So then I'm going to go in now with the final piece. So this is the piece that sits on top. It's that final piece of decoupage. I can't put as much pin flare on this piece, and I'm aware of that from the moment I start sculpting, because this won't hide the pin flare, so I can't put as much on. I can get some on. So I'm just going to use my ball tool, and I'm going to use it on each individual petal. This is where your dense foam comes in. It's not giving underneath. It's forgiving, but it's not giving. So it allows me to sculpt, and I can get that beautiful dimension. If you look at the curve that now comes through on that and the height that it sits at compared to how it started as a flat piece of paper, that's what you're giving to your card. You're giving it lift, you're giving it dimension, and you're giving it shape. So now I can go through on here, little bits of pin flare this time. I can't go mad now because it's going to show that it's not wide enough to hide everything. So I'm just going to bring this down and place just inside there. Can you see that? We're starting to get that depth and we're starting to get that height. I'm going to squish this down a tiny bit. I don't want that pin flare showing too much. So by doing so, I can raise and lift, still have that dimension. Now I don't know how well you can see it sitting from above there, but if I bring it over to the white, I'm just going to move this, Taz, and move this onto here so you can see. Now when you look at that from above, you can now see the height of that, and you can see how flat those are, okay, even though I've shaped them. That's the point of the decoupage with Carnation. Now I just want to say, on a very odd note, I am always going to fly the flag for Carnation, but part of why I love it is because I am a paper sculptor. It's what I do for a living. When I talk to you about how those cut lines are important, as part of something that I've learned obviously as a paper sculptor, that's one of the most key things. Make sure you've got your breaking points in your paper, and so those cut lines allow us to do it. I've worked with many different companies and I've worked with many different decoupage elements, and you cannot get that effect, not as effectively as you can with Carnation, because the lines are there. It's not to do with the fact that it's just beautiful, it's to do with the fact that as artists we are allowed to sculpt it, we are allowed to create a different visual, and that's important, and that's why Carnation stands out. So when people talk about, you know, Carnation, you can't make a bad card with Carnation, you can't, because the original point we start with is stunning. But then what can you do with it? How far can you take it? When you put something on it and you start to build those, it's just incredible. So these vignettes give us all the chance to play. So for something like this, I'll do this much quicker, but for something like this, ball tool, make sure it's the right size for the piece of work that you're on. So for this, where I've got that larger piece, I've got the right size ball tool. It's perfect for that little petal that I've got there. However, if I'm going to start working on the smaller aspects, I'm going to start using the smaller pieces on the ball tool. So I'm just going to work down, and that's the standard for all of your vignettes. Work with the size of the area that you're on, not just use a great big one that you do this with. You will not get the same effect. It's important. So I'm going to work on the center point of that so it becomes bulbous, and then I'll work on this one here. Just there. Same with this one. Start on that bigger ball tool and work through on the bigger petal. One that fits. Hold on, I don't like that one. Here we go. One that fits, and then go smaller. Work on your smaller areas there. Bring it through, then work on your center point. So go back to your bigger ball tool, work on your centerpiece to create your dome, and that'll just give you that really beautiful shaping. And same again on these ones. This I'm not too worried about. and then I'll just add those two. If I was doing this for a gift for somebody, I would spend lots longer doing them, but I just wanted to show you the difference. I don't mean to preach, but I just think it's such an important part of the Carnation dies that we have this gift of these little cut lines in it, and how that gives us such power to play and to build. Plenty of pin flow on these. Raise them, raise them, raise them. Give it that lift. And remember, on the smaller ones, you can't use the same amount of pin flare. And don't squash pin flare. If you push it down, it'll splodge. I don't want it to splodge. So we're gently placing, get the adhesion. And that's all you need. So just placing this over here. Oh. And raising. Same again on this side. Isn't it pretty? These new vignettes are absolutely stunning. Please do remember, these are going to go up to £15 at midnight. And they're only £4.99 at the minute on the deal of the day on the Carnation Crafts website, which is www.carnationcrafts.co.uk. Right, I'm okay with that as it is. Now, I'm going to go in with white glue, and I'm very specifically going to go in with white glue. I'm using the Carnation Crafts Everyday Glue, and I'm specifically going to use it on certain points of the leaf at the back. I'm not touching the flowers. I'm going to use it on specific points of the leaf. Now, normally you would want to allow your pin flare to dry before you did this. It makes sense to cut a load of these out and make them up and with the pin flare and just leave them for 24 hours, whatever, and then you've got them for future use. So I wouldn't advise doing this while it's still wet. Sue says, do I ever go the opposite way so the decoupage bends outwards? Yeah, absolutely. It depends what I'm looking for, and it depends which flower it is as well, to be honest. If I was doing something like a sunflower, it would never occur to me to dome it that way. I would have to visually do it that way. So it's just where my head sits. With these ones, because I'm building the decoupage, I like to do them domed that way, because if I try and dome them the other way with all of those layers, I'm going to lose the depth of the layer in the center point, because my bowl point will be down. So I'll lose the visual on it. Does that make sense? So it makes more sense for me to have these ones bowled downwards. But yeah, I do play with that, and it's just about dimension and what you're looking at for your finished piece. Really, how does it visually change? So I'm going in with the leaves now. I'm just going to place really tiny amounts of wet glue, just in little areas. Some just here. Glue's sticky. I don't need to go far with it. Place some around on those prominent areas. I'm not worried about some overlapping. If I was going to put it in the post, would I put a little bit more glue on? Maybe. Would I let it dry? Absolutely. So get it in place. I'm going to edge out. So if I'm going to have a millimetre distance down here, I'm going to try and get a millimetre distance down here. If I'm going to try and leave this 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to try and do the same at the top. That's my grounding point. Then once I've done that, I'm going to find those points of glue that I put on, and I'm just going to press, keeping a lot of those leaves flatter, and that's my holding point. Now, if that doesn't stick because I didn't put much glue on, that's fine. I can go back in and add more glue. What I can't do is take glue away. So if it starts splodging, I've lost the effect. Whereas this way, I can absolutely hold it in place. I'm just going to shuffle, see if I've got it. It's not moving. That's absolutely fine. I know that's exactly where it is. Can you see the dimension on that when you lift that? So the change that we make. So all these little details that you get, the warmth colour of the rose papers, the rose blush papers, which are really important, bringing out the tonal quality of that, which allows the decoupage to sit really high and have a massive impact. And part of that is just using your blush papers. It's important. Now I'm going to finish it off. This is so simple, this card, but I did want to show you the different ways of playing. Now the Kingfisher, isn't he gorgeous? That to me is extraordinary. That new colourway on those vignettes, I think he is stunning. Think of bringing him in with the original colourway of the feathers in Bohemian Beauty. They will absolutely bond. They're so pretty together. So think of the different things that you've got. Now with the Kingfisher, he has got a jelly bean body. So birds have got a jelly bean body. That's what their bodies look like. So we're going to work with that shape. So if you can work on a vignette and you can go, okay, which pieces are separate? It's not so much that his head's separate. This whole portion of him is separate. That's a bean shape. So, sorry, hummingbird. So we're working with that bean, okay? And then we're going to work with his wingspan. Now we can see his wingspan goes in 3. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to work with that. Then we'll work with the tail. So take your ball tools. And we can't work from the centre because we're going to crease him. So I'm going to use it on the outside first, and I'm going to break those fibres. So just break that through and allow it to curve. Now you can create some really beautiful effects just by creating that curve, and you get some really lovely dimension too. But I'm just working round. Then I'm going to work inwards on his body, just working through, and then work on his tummy. Now I can go to the centre without creasing the card because I've broken the fibres on the outside first. Okay, then I'm going to change down to the smaller ball tool here, and I'm going to work on the 3 panels of his wings. So I'm just working with those broken points of paper that the die cutting has given us. Follow Nick's shading lines and then work on the outer edge on that feather there. Just work with those lines so you create that beautiful sculpture. Then I'm going to work on the tail feathers just bit by bit, nothing too much, but I separate them out. What happens with that is, as you can see, I get a cup. There is a cup there, okay? There is a bowl. You see his tail sitting. So I don't want him to be that shape. It won't make sense. But because I've broken fibres even more, I can turn it. Now I can bring his tail forward. It's still shaped and it's still got that beautiful curvature, but I'm using the cut line here to raise it. Then I can take his wings and I can do the same. And I can take his head and I can just pull it forward. So I create that change. Now a different way of doing his wings would be, I'm going to ruin all the work I just did, but it is for you at home. If you want to change the different way, you can turn him and you can pull his wings this way by using a pokey. Okay, so then his wing, excuse me, would be in flight. So you get that beautiful curvature that way. So it depends which way you want to do it. So sorry, Taz, I'm all over the place. If I just place him here, it will have it, see, and you get that dimension. I'm so sorry about my throat. It will get better. Then I'm going to take my pin flat and I'm going to use this on his tummy to bring him forward. Yes, to everyone that's saying that's a king, isn't a kingfisher, it's a hummingbird. Absolutely. Just wait till you try testing me on flower names. It's a bird, Miss Taz. So I'm going to bring him forward, and obviously we want his little beak to be in that rose somewhere. Just about there is fine. Once I've found my point, I can push his tongue. Not squish him, but just push it down so that I get that beautiful shadow play. Now his wing would be too extended to put him in the post, and I wouldn't advise the pokey tool as the best method of shaping his wing. I would stick with the ball tools. I'm so sorry. As somebody who sculpts paper, I would stick with the ball tools, but I did want to show you an alternative way of doing it. Now, if I hold that up to the front, so you can start visually seeing it as impactful as it is, I've got 2 elements there, 2 dies. So I've got the hummingbird and I've got the panel at the side. And that's it. That's your special edition vignettes. They are stunning. You don't need anything else on that card. It is stunning as it is, because what we get is the visual, the dimension, and all of the impact of that. And the simple tools of using your ball tools with your foam mat on something as impactful as the new vignettes, it's insanely good. Look at that. Get your blush papers out. They're so important. Change that tone and that colour. You see how it brings out all of the colour in that hummingbird. Miss Taz, I need a drink. Stay there.
I can see the little heart in the rose just at the front. Just a tiny little heart on the side.
Which rose? The purple one?
Yeah, the big one.
You can see a rose in the centre?
Yeah.
Just there?
Yeah.
Cute. I wonder if that's one of Nick's Easter eggs. He does those things. So, Sue Martin says, what size is that card base, please, Carla? I'll do the professional. Oh, no, I've got a ruler. I've got a ruler. I've got a mat. Come at me with your technology. Hold on. So that is 8 1/4 by 6 1/2, I believe. 6 and yeah, 8 1/4 by 6 1/2, and then I went down by 1/4 of an inch incrementally to get my first mat and then my layer on my blush. Do you see what I mean about the rose coloured paper underneath instead of just using it plain white? That would have been a much colder card. Doesn't mean it would be less beautiful, but it would be much crisper, and we would bring out the colder tones, so you'd be bringing out the colours of the daisy. So just something to think about when you're working through. Now I am going to go and do another demo, so I've got 2 more demos. I hope I've got time because I've been rabbiting. Sorry, Miss Tiztaz is holding up times in front of me. I'll go quicker on this one. These vignettes are stunning, and I want to, at the very end, just pull out some of those vignettes as well. So let's have a looky at some of these pieces. Again, a card base. I haven't got any mats and layers for this one. We're working without very specifically. So this one, just to let you know, is 8 1/4 by 5 1/4. So we're doing something slightly elongated. Have I not scored that, Miss Taz? Do you know? Half a brain and I'd be dangerous. Let me just put this on here. I'll use a bit of finger lift, I think, on this, just so I can create a base. Push that across. So in order to create your card base, if you haven't scored it, first of all, you should always score it. Don't do it without. But if you haven't scored it, the best thing you can do at this stage is put them together, shuffle them. Can you see how I've got my fingers between? Okay, so I'm protecting it before I get near it. If I'd have scored it, I could have pushed it against itself, right? But because I haven't, keep them separate until you're ready, and use your fingers as your pressers, use your board at the bottom as your presser, then let go, okay? And just commit at the top. All right, that just gives you a way around it when you get into a pickle, especially if you're on television and you have to do that. It's happened many times. Right, I'm not going to spend the time that I did decoupage in so much on this one, but I will shape out a little bit because we haven't got a lot of time and I'd like to get 3 demos. I want you to see as many of the vignettes that you're buying as you possibly can, because this is such a stunning, stunning set that they've done. They've knocked it right out of the park. I'm going to go a little bit quicker. I don't advise the method I'm about to do, but if you need it to go faster, take a medium-sized ball tool, and the rule is golden. Don't break the rule. Start from the outside and work your way spiral to the inside. If you try and go at the center, you're going to break it. It's going to be uncomfortable. Start from the outside, work your way, and sculpt it round in a spiral so that you're breaking the fibers as you go. And that's going to allow it to not just crease really badly. And then you can really work on your center point. And that center point will give you the bowl that you need, okay? That's my advice. Once you've broken those fibers, you're free to go. But you've got to break them first. Outside, in. Same again, outside, in. Easy, easy, easy. Then I'm going to take this, I'm going to pin flare this on because I'm not going to do too much with the decoupage. So I do want those pieces that I've done to protrude. Look at this for a corner element. That is so stunning. Insanely pretty, right? The reason I wanted to do this white on white, and I was really specific about it. So when I started doing the demos, I started cutting out some of the, I keep saying backing papers, like the matching papers that come in the set. And I started by using those, and then I was like, I don't want to. I just want you to see it for the impact that it is, because the way they've done the special vignettes this time is just insanely pretty. The colours are gorgeous. So when I put something like that, I haven't even got a matte and layer. That's Carnation. That is Carnation to a T. I don't even have a matte and layer, and already I've created something stunning. Put a sentiment across there, you've created a beautiful card. End of, full stop. Right, I'm going to use the little bird bath. And I'm going to follow those lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is break the paper there, break the fibres of the paper. So smaller ball tool, bring it round. Then I'm going to work with the bowl shape. So I'm going to use the edge here bring it down and around the edge there. Now I can start working towards the center of that point without breaking those fibers too much. Then I'm going to work on the next piece. So I'm never somebody who's just going to sit and sort of ball tool that out, because I know the result is so much better if you don't. Obviously, we do whatever's comfortable for ourselves. Can you see how it's starting to bowl upwards as you're pressing? And it's just breaking those fibers. Same again at the bottom, and then I can bring that bottom panel. Now, because again, cut lines, I can use, you see this point where there's a line here? I can use that point to bring that back up. Same again here. So now what I get is a bowl at the top, and that gives me the dimension I want for the bed bath, because I want it to be a bowl, I want it to be domed, I want that to have shape to it. And so by doing it in increments and doing it down, you can really shape it out to make it more realistic. Sue says, thank you, I bought my first lot of blush papers the other day, can't wait to use them. Blush papers are really important, just because they give us something completely different to just using white. We get used to using white a lot, don't we? It's something that we sort of rely on and we edge to, but we can create a completely different look by using blush papers, because we've got a different base point, and it's not about it being a different colour, it's about it being a different tone, and that tone in colour theory changes how it comes out. So I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to place it. For now, I might raise that slightly. I can play either way, but I'll just raise that and just use that as my grounding point, so I can place that in slightly. Use that pin flare. I'm okay with it coming just off the edge. If you're not, just move it slightly across. You could put it on top, but I quite like the fact that that is my grounding point. Now what I'm going to do is put a little tiny piece of wet glue just on this leaf at the bottom so that I can place. That's going to hold everything where I want it to be, but I get to keep the dimension, and I've still got the dimension on my bowl. Can you see that? So it stands forward, and I'm going to steal a little bit of that on this hedgehog. But what I'm going to do, I love him. I want him in real life. I'm just going to use a ball tool to shape him out. Great big surface area here. Great big surface area. So again, change the way you sculpt. Use your large ball tool. It's a big surface area. Break the edges, and then work on his tummy first. Work inwards. So you create that bowl on his tum. Then once you've done that, start to work in the round, and that will give his tummy a lovely, lovely lift on the inside. Then work with the head, so around the edge, and then bring it to that center point, and then I'm just going to change down to a smaller ball tool and just work around his little face. And if you wanted to, you could go in with his hands. Now his little hands poke. So can you see how they just poke through? So he can hold all of the things. So if I wanted to hand him, for instance, a little rose to hold, he absolutely could. Super cute, right? Really sweet. He's just delightful. So then what I'm going to do is steal some of that pin flare for his feet, get him in place. Once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to raise him and pin flare his tum, and I can work out exactly how high I want that to be. So I'm going to put pin flare on the card underneath, just pushing through, making sure that's coming out. My syringe is a bit sticky this morning. There we go. So I'm building that height, and I'm just going to lay his tum on it. I know he's where I want him. I know his feet are secure, and I don't want to squash him. See the shadow behind him? That's the joy of pin flare. Can you see this? Where he's raised. So he's properly, fully proud, and that makes his tummy stand out. It makes him rotund, and he's very handsome. So all the different elements. Now, I've got a lot of white space going on at the top, and I've got choices what to do with it. Let's make the half bow so you can see it. So this is what your half bow looks like once it's cut, and you've got a circular point there, circular point here, and you've got a little score line that goes down. So all we're going to do is turn it over, and you're going to meet the 2 points just halfway, and you're going to glue it just so those 2 circular points meet. Okay, and then you're just going to use your score line. Simple as that. Fold in. So I'm just going to put a little bit more glue there, You're going to hold the two of them together, let it stick, and then just push on that bow line so you get that rounding. Use your pokey to make that even more round if you want. Now if you create two of them, obviously that creates a full bow, and you simply do that by placing those two together. So it's up to you what you want to do regarding your design, really. How do you want it to sit? Perfect little bow. Push. Now, options. White space. What to do with it? First of all, the first thing I'll say is white space is super important. Don't feel like you've got to fill white space. You don't have to. I like that just as it is. I think it's super cute. You could put a sentiment there and it would finish it. But I do love the little bow. I think it's so sweet. Do I want to fill more white space? To me, no. To me, it's too busy, but that's the way I craft. You might find it much better to have that extra little piece at the top. To me, it's just a little bit too busy, but I wanted to show you it as an example of how we change the way we craft with Carnation stuff depending on your style and how you like to work with things. To me, I like the white space. I like the fact that it gives my hedgehog a little room to breathe, the fact that I can use my bow at an angle, the different points. So it's up to you, just depends how you like to craft. I'm going to use it just as it is. A little bit of white glue there so that I can push it down, and that's going to push my bow forward. And I'm just going to place and push. Then I'm going to work with the bow, give it the dimension I want it to have, let that dry. And it's a 2-minute job to create something really sweet, really cute. If that was a get well card, it would just be beautiful. So I'm just going to turn that around so you can see it in its full glory, and then look at the dimension on it. Cute as a button. Really cute as a button, and that's without a mat or a layer. It's just perfect, right? Now I'm just going to give you a very quick refresh on that number and where to get it from. We are going to the Carnation Crafts website, which is www.carnationcrafts.co.uk. Today you'll be able to press the deal of the day button, and that is going to take you to your special edition vignettes for these collections that we've been looking at today. It is only on till midnight. You can only get them for £4.99 until midnight tonight. The number for them will still be there, obviously, if you're watching this at a different time, but they're going to be £15 because you've got 67% discount today only. So that's the only time you can get it. If you're watching this on repeat, the number you'll need is 231890. They are the Garden Grace Special Edition download vignettes for you at a just stonking price. Stonking price. I love it. So, right, I'm going to do one more demo. And Melly Alex says, thank you. I've been trying to work out how to make that bow. I feel so foolish now. Don't feel foolish. There's no daft questions. If you don't know how to make it and it doesn't make sense in your brain, then you don't know how to make it. But once you know, right? So that's why we do demos. It's so you can, see those things in action. I'm going to make a busy card. I'm going to make a much busier card than the cards that I've done. So the ones that I've done so far have been quite clean and simple, which tends to be more my style, but I know not all of us craft that way. So I'm going to do something that is a little more sort of busier on the eye, shall we say. Not too much, but a little bit. We're going to work with that rose blush again because it's one of my very favourites, and I think the tone of it is just beautiful. Right. Card base. What size did I cut these ones to, Miss Taz? I seem to have favoured 8 1/4 today. 8 1/4 by 6. So that is a card base for this. I did remember to do my red liner this time. Let's pull that down. Towards your body. So we're always shuffling, make sure it's where it needs to be before you commit to the stick, and then you know that you've got it in the right place and it just sits in a lovely way. And then we've got this. Now I've done these both on a 3mm foam tape. You see those together? So we've got a little bit of dimension, but I'm not being insanely high with it. Just gives me a point of difference. Remember, white on white is going to eat itself. You need to just put a little bit of difference between the two. So if I place... Am I about straight, Taz? Do you know what? It'll be fine. There we go. Oh, my tummy. Need to eat something, I think. Right, I need to... What was I going to... Hold on. Let me see if I can find here. I just want to show you something. Right. waste a piece of card here. I do apologise to Carnation. This is not something I would normally do, but if I don't use foam tape, ignore this edge. If this is just another piece of 350, that's 350, okay? So it's exactly the same cardstock. If I don't use any foam tape, and I just lay that down, can you see what I mean by white eats itself? White on white only really works if you're willing to put some distance between the layers. Can you see where I'm coming from? It's one of those things that it took me a long time to kind of work out. I love white on white, but it was always kind of like, well, I don't really know why I'm doing it. Raise it, give yourself the shadow, see the difference? And it'll make all the impact on your cards. So then I'm going in with that rose. And I'm just placing through. Right, let's play. My favourite bit. Those panels are incredible. Isn't that gorgeous? Do you know what? A little bit of foam tape on that. If you did it that way, that'd just be perfect, wouldn't it? Ignore me. I get very, very excited when I can see things that are just very plain and simple. I've got a corner element here. Now, that pink is, instead of where I use it with the purple, and it brings out all my pink tones, when I use it with the orange, can you see how it makes the orange just pop? It's because we're using a warm colour underneath it, so it's heating the orange. It literally is heating the orange. Think of when you dye your hair. It's the same theory, it's the same principle. Any tones that we put, so toner, when we use toner on bleached hair, we use it to cool those tones, don't we? And it's the same thing that we're doing when we're using blush papers, where we're creating a different point visually with it, so we're changing the colours. I hope that makes sense. So I haven't got much time to do this demo, so I'm going to work with the larger ball tool. Rule of thumb, the golden rule: if I can't do every petal, we're going to work from the outside, we're going to work in. The colour of that orange on these vignettes is just knockout beautiful. Same with the smaller ones. Take a smaller ball tool if you want to do your daisies. Now the daisies have little cut lines all the way through, so the petals are separate in an elongated way rather than a rounded way. So you're just working them in a slightly different way. Make sure that stays flat. You don't want it all curved and bold on your card. We're going to use the points that we've shaped and we're going to pull the leaves to make it still flat so everything else jumps up. And I'm going to use some wet glue on the leaves in order to aid that. Put some on those edges on those buds, and then I'm going to use pin flare on the bits that I've shaped. So I'm using both. And that's going to allow the roses to stay upwards and the leaves to be flat. So I'm going to put it about there, slightly higher than I did last time. Lay it flat where I put the glue, so my roses still pop and I still get the shadow. I can still see the shadow at the bottom. Everything's still got dimension. And now I've got this piece. So what I need to do now is shape this rose out. Again, same rules, work from your outside, go to your in. But this time I'm going to make this one slightly more rotund on the tummy of it, if you like, the centre point. Now what I'm going to do, keep shaping through, go to the inside, but then I'm going to take a smaller ball tool and I'm going to work in the centre point to create a bowl. And that's just going to give me a little bit more dimension on the inside of it for that bowl shape. So I'm just going to use that to push, and I'm going to put some pin flare. I'm just going to take this straight from, because I'm running out in my syringe. Good bit, good dollop there of pin flare. And I'm going to lay it over the other rows so that I've got that height. And I've decoupaged by using the two separate elements and bringing them together. Now I want that to lay flat on this part, but I want to put some stuff behind it. So before I do that, I'm just going to leave it exactly as it is, because when I get to my end point and I've placed everything where I need it to, I can raise that and I can glue it at the end. So I'm not committing to it yet until I've got everything where I want it to be. So I've got some little characters here, and I've got my beautiful garden chatter, which I love so much. Now, the shape of these two are going to dictate which way they go round. His tail is very elongated, and if I put him there, I'm forced to have them quite far apart. Instead of doing that, I'm going to use his tail to my advantage, and I'm going to pop the little rabbit on top of him, okay? So it's going to be very cute. I am going slightly over the hour. I do apologise, guys. I'll be as quick as I can. I'm just going to use his tail here, working on the outside edge first, raising it through and just pulling round, then a little bit on his head. Let me just go to the slightly larger ball tool for his head. Work your outside first onto the inside, and then his tummy the same. I love this little squirrel. He's so handsome. Or she. I have to think of a name for her. Right, so pull the head forward. You don't want a bowl on an animal. You've got to have that different point on the head just to make it make sense. And you can do the same with the tail as well. Fluff it out just to make it make sense, and all that dimension will give you a different viewing. Bit of pin flare on here, mainly on his tail, a little bit on his tum, doesn't matter because I'm going to hide him out, but I'm going to raise this and I'm just going to put him ever so slightly under. I'm not committing to any stick at this point, so I'm just, sorry guys, I'm just going to have this just there for the second. Take these bunnies, look at his little face, or her little, they're so sweet. Take those ears, they're worth a shape, aren't they? Just as they are, they're so sweet. You could actually just shape the ears on the little rabbit and it would give it the cutest little dimension, but that tummy is ridiculously cute and I can't leave that alone. So I'll take the tummy. Smaller one for the eyes. These beautiful dolphin eyes, just super cute. Pull the head forward. Give it the dimension, but give it the point of difference. Otherwise, it's going to look odd. Animals aren't fully rounded. They've got to have that separate point just for the musculature to come through. So then I'm just going to use a little bit for the tum here and a little bit for his head. Pop him in, but just slightly over that squirrel. Now I can start deciding my points. Where do I want them to be? I'm going to smush them up a little bit so they're a little closer to each other because they're very happy. Okay, and then I'm just going to add more. Now I said to you this was going to be the busier of all three cards, and that's what I'm intending to do. The reason I'm very loosely sticking them is because I don't know where my watering can is going to be. Now the reason we have double-sided vignettes is because we can make choices. That would be the, shall we say, want of a better phrase, correct way. But if I put that there, I've got way too much going on over here and not enough over here. So I'm going to use the reverse of it. It's obviously going to sit behind the squirrel because I'm going to use that white space. I've got more white space there because that ear is dominating that part of the card. So I'm going to balance it with the bird at the other side. So I'm going to shape it on the right side of this. Very quickly, I know you all need to go. I do apologise. Just bring this round. So that belly of this comes forward. That's all the detailing I need to do for that. So I'm just going to bring this in, pin flare. Everything's raised on this because I'm doing something that's busy. I'll explain that in a minute. Hold on. Let me just put this down. If I put that there, right. So now we're pulling all that through. Now I can start committing. So I can push that down a little bit. I can start working my adhesion and bringing it in because I'm committing to what I've got. I've got my composition. Everything is good with my comp. So now I commit to the stick and I can, you know, make choices with what I'm doing. This, just a tiny amount. I want this to sit flat. So tiny amount on this bit and a tiny amount on the bottom. That's all I've got. And that's all I'm doing as far as that being stuck is concerned because I don't want it to squash everything that I've done all the time. So that is that. Now, the reason that I taught you about using pin flare, sculpting, dimension, all of those other things, when we're creating something like this where it's a much busier card, right? The reason pin flare becomes so handy is when we've got a very plain background, if we can raise it, and I taught you about shadow play all the time because shadow play is really important. If I've got something that is incredibly sort of busy like this, where I've got lots going on, there's a huge amount happening in this card. Because I've lifted things and I've got shadows that are working underneath it, what happens is visually your eye relaxes. So It's just a natural part of looking at it. You relax because you can see the shadow underneath it. So the layers make sense. We're bringing it forward, it becomes 3D. If I just laid all of those flat in those layers, it's going to be much harder to make a difference between each piece on the eye. You don't know it, your brain's just accepting it. So if you have it all flat, you're going to really struggle with the visual endpoint. So if you can raise it and you can add the dimension, get the shadow underneath it, you're going to make it make sense. So we can get much busier. We can really pull in all of that busy and we can go to town and it'll still make sense. So something that you've got that's very, very plain compared to something that is very, very busy, the two still make sense. They've still got a point of reason, if that makes sense. And it's just about how you comp, but always try and get your raise. Just try and sculpt as much as you can, because those cut lines are there for such a good reason, and they really do make a difference to how we get our finished effects. So that's 3 very different cards made from these special edition vignettes. So we've got the little hedgehog as well. I'll bring them all down so you can see as much as you can. Just beautiful. So things like Cozy Cottage. Look at that. That visual point really creates dimension, doesn't it? That gorgeous, and that's so evocative, that one piece. Somebody who's got a new home, that's such an evocative piece. Loads of things for you to play with in this. You're going to have the best time with these special edition vignettes. They are gorgeous. You will find them on the Carnation Crafts website today, which is www.carnationcrafts.co.uk. There's a big red button at the middle point at the top of their website, and that's your deal of the day. Please do click that today and you'll get these for £4.99. Just to reiterate though, they will go up to £15 at midnight tonight. This is the only chance you'll have to get them at £4.99. You don't just get the vignettes, you also get what you would establish to be your perfect papers to go with them as well, digital versions of perfect papers. So you're going to have the perfect background colours to work with when you're working with these collections. Please do consider your blush papers as well, just to add in so you've got that tonal quality. You're going to have the best fun. It's my advice, if you're buying a rose, a blush paper to go with these, my advice would be the rose one, just because it's got the warmer tones to it and it really works really beautifully with the special edition vignettes that you get in today. It's been a real pleasure to work with these vignettes. It's been such a lovely thing to do. You okay, Miss Tiz Taz?
Sue's asked a question, and I've done some.
Why can't I see it?
On Facebook.
Hold on. I can't see it, can't see it, can't see it.
She says, Taz, are you able to find out where the backing papers came
Oh
from?
yeah, on the 7th card.
So I've had a look. I think it's from the digital dreamscapes that we did.
You're talking about this.
Yeah.
It's digital dreamscapes. You want it on the overhead, Miss Taz? That's the digital dreamscapes USB, which has got all of your backing papers on. There's 1,400 backing papers on that USB. That's on the Carnation Crafts website as well. It's just got everything on there that you need. It's super useful to have. And they're all there. It's just JPEGs, so it's not something that works with a scan and cut. It's just a JPEG. You can get it on 230131. It's got thousands of papers for you. It's so pretty, that USB. Right. We are at the end of the show. I'm very sorry that I overran this morning, but I do think it's important that you get to see what you're getting and how to work with it. I've really enjoyed the time this morning. Thank you for having me. And I hope you take really good care of yourself. Miss Taz, when are we back?
Monday.
Monday. What are we doing on Monday?
Pure enchantment.
We're doing pure enchantment. Ooh, we're working with the fairies on Monday. That's very exciting. Right, guys. Okay, I will see you very, very soon. Please do take care of yourselves. Be good to yourselves, and I will see you on Monday. Until then, see you soon. Bye.